A society's heritage is in the roots of its culture, its way of life, whether in terms of ideas, values and traditions, or in terms of political and social systems.
In this sense, culture is the basis for human existence, where the individual shares such values and norms with members of his family and the community to which he belongs. This unified underlying structure is what we see in the communities of the Gulf Cooperation Council.
Culture, though, can receive a serious shock with intense economic and technological challenges. Given the rapidity and thoroughgoing nature of GCC countries' development, their cultures have witnessed equally transformative changes.
The GCC as a region, of course, as a region or as a regional organization.
Dr. Nada Sleiman Al-Matawi, Research and Consulting Vice President, the Center for Gulf and Arabian Peninsula Studies, CGAPS.
Maybe to be more frank, has been trying, but each country is trying at its own pace. Before we used to rely on the governments, on the media. Now with globalization, with the emerging private sector.
The GCC countries' interest in their cultural heritage therefore stems from a deeply held belief that there is no room for evolution except through a deep connection to one's own roots.
Many attempts have been done to retain the Arab culture, because I think there is a belief, a deep belief within the UAE and I think within the GCC that there is a need to embrace modernity, but at the same time this modernity should not clash with tradition.
Nadia Mounajed is a visiting fellow at the LSE Middle East Center, where she studies the visual culture of the Middle East.
And that the identity of many countries within the GCC should be at the intersection between modernity and tradition. So you see that at the same time we see many cultural projects that focus on heritage and preserving heritage and making sure that we are connected to the identity, to our original culture. At the same time, there is no harm in embracing the global culture with everything that it brings with it in terms of modern art, modern forms of expression.
ما قبل الحصة قالت لي البس عباية على الراس واغطي وجهي.
طيب ايش رايك نزوجك؟
ها ما يضحك.
Before the rise of modern nations in the Gulf, residents identified with a variety of communities, tribal, religious, and royal, forming a series of interlocking ties and societal connections. As a result, there is a uniform base to the differentiated Gulf countries, a consistency among fundamental beliefs and values which link all Gulf societies together.
It has always been deeply affected by travels in the region. It was never a locked kind of region. It has always been affected by India, by East Africa, by the British, by the Portuguese. There has always been a diverse culture in this part of the world, something that not everyone knows about.
The Gulf culture is based in essence on Islamic and Arab heritage, which formed the basis of civilizations in this region of the world. These massive movements laid the groundwork for the deeply rooted tolerance and openness which the Gulf is famous for.
The Gulf Arab culture extends back to 4000 BC through the civilizations in the south, presently Oman, and Babylonian or Dilmun civilization of Bahrain, to the Islamic Caliphate, which spread outward from Mecca to the rest of the world.
We are, as Arabs, they call it the origin of the Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula. And the whole Gulf, that we have similar cultures.
Mr. Khalid Abdulaziz Al Duwaysan is the Kuwaiti ambassador to the UK.
These cultures, and values been carrying these cultures and values for thousands and thousands of years. Of course, that we've been changing now, that there are a lot of change because first of all, that we have so many expatriates. And these expatriates, in some countries, outnumber the people.
As nations take different paths, they have begun to develop their own unique identities, composed of the particular historical, economic, and demographic changes experienced by each individual country.
I think each community interacts or builds their own culture based on their own exposure, based on the openness. So the UAE has been obviously in a position that it has a very multi-national community, which creates a multinational culture. In a country that has less or a smaller body of expats, for instance, you see that the impact would be less. I think UAE and Qatar have this multinational dimension because they have a large body of communities that come from elsewhere.
Well, I can see, that some countries, varies from the others. But overall, we have the same basic things. But of course, we are, from country to country. Some countries are liberal more than the other countries. But this is, that doesn't affect the basic values and the basic cultures of the whole GCC.
The similarities and common features between the GCC has never meant a lack of cultural specificity within each country.
In the UAE, we find a long-held heritage which manifests customs and traditions passed down from one generation to another. These are grounded in Islamic ethics and pure Arabian customs, such as those related to marriage, occasions, hospitality, clothing, family relations, and leisure.
In Bahrain, contemporary culture is perhaps the richest in the Arab Gulf region. Education in the state of Bahrain began in the 1920s, helping to connect many segments of Bahraini society to the wider world of Arab culture. Thus, before many other Gulf countries, Bahrain had access to regional literature, poetry, and magazines, and participated in the greater exchange of cultural products.
As for artistic activity, whether in audio or visual mediums, there are many associations working to develop Bahraini talents. Bringing artistic expression into the era of technological and media openness.
خلق ولا هي ويا الدكان.
يا يمه احنا نبيك تطلع من حبستك هاد.
In Saudi Arabia, the Saudi society is characterized by ancient customs and traditions, despite the significant demographic changes affecting society. In a true representation of Saudi's distinctive culture, Medina was chosen as the capital of Islamic culture for the year 2013, providing a rich program of Saudi scientific forums, radio and television events, theatrical performances, film,
إن شاء الله جاي المدرسة من غير غطا على راسي.
غالي عليك.
أبي أشتري سيكل عشان أسابق عبد الله.
and poetry evenings, and cultural and social programs, in addition to seminars, training courses, and workshops.
In Oman, universities and cultural associations place particular emphasis on preserving folklore, music, and literature. These more traditional arts provide a platform for innovation and renewed creativity, inspiring unique fusions of old and new.
Qatar has been particularly active in building a national culture which honours both past accomplishment and future visions. Oil and gas revenues in Qatar have enabled immense investments in cultural institutions, such as the Islamic Arts Museum, the National Galleries, and the Modern Art Museum.
Kuwait's geographical location has had a major impact on society's open and receptivity to surrounding cultures. Placed on the middle of two trade routes, it received throughout history rich contributions in traded goods and cultural practices. Building upon that tradition,
الكلام العذب كله خلى باكر يمكن الغالي
Kuwaitis have built a culture of consultation and dialogue, promoting a political environment based on pluralism and freedom of expression.
As Gulf societies have grown in both size and wealth, great emphasis has been placed on contemporary cultural production. Indeed, over the past 50 years, the GCC region has witnessed a flowering in all artistic fields. Including novel and poetry writing, cinema, theatre, and visual arts.
This growth would have been impossible without institution support given by both governmental and non-governmental cultural bodies throughout the region. They have played a leading role in the dissemination of culture and science, reviving traditions while nurturing new creative visions.
You have many cultural establishments in the Gulf that whether have existed historically or that are now emerging. You have a number of establishments that are linked to writing and literature and poetry. You have a number of state-run establishments that are interested in developing cultural aspects like theatre and arts.
In efforts to promote further cultural exchange, the GCC has partnered with many international cultural institutions. For example, there are ongoing activities organised with UNESCO, which helps to preserve traditional crafts and natural products. This collaboration has also brought workshops on the role of museums in the region, as well as trainings about World Heritage Sites, museum programming, and collections management.
There's a lot that the GCC is doing to protect this. For example, one that I can talk about because it comes from Saudi Arabia is the Janadriya Festival.
Dr. Afnan Al-Shaibi is the Secretary General of Arab British Chamber of Commerce in Saudi Arabia.
The Janadriya Festival is an initiative by His Majesty King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, and it's a festival that's been going on for so many years now, and it focuses on the culture and tradition and the heritage of the country, from the folklore to the food, to the dress, to the education. It's very interesting. You go in there and you see how people used to live, what they used to wear, what they used to eat and still eat. So this is one of the initiatives that happens every year, and right now, for the past couple of years, they have a foreign guest country that comes in.
Indeed, significant efforts have been made to physically discover more of the Gulf's Arab heritage.
Across the region, there is a huge amount of archaeology there that is being discovered.
Venetia Porter is a curator of Middle Eastern art at the British Museum in London.
And, heritage going back, many thousands of years. When you think of extraordinary sites in Saudi Arabia, both from pre-Islamic era and early Islamic era, very important cultures in Bahrain, in the UAE. These areas, go back in antiquity, and they were the sort of the gateway, in a sense, into the Middle East. These countries were involved in trade. Omani pilots were famous, for example, and so these places have a real depth to their history. Something that I've been working on recently is that we did an exhibition here about the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and I realised through doing that we had a collaboration with Saudi Arabia. Really, the richness of that heritage connected to the early pilgrim roads, going across Saudi Arabia, these fantastically routes that really flourished in early Islamic times, and where there's an awful lot of sort of cultural remains along the routes, and then the development of the holy cities in Mecca and Medina and so on, and there's a wealth of objects that are being discovered, that are being excavated, very important sites in Saudi Arabia.
The results of these finds are being housed in state-of-the-art museums, helping younger generations of Gulf citizens to connect to their more distant heritage.
There are so many areas, that we are maintaining and keeping our heritage. One of them, now in the Gulf region, you see that we have wonderful museums, that we're keeping our culture and Islamic, culture, Arabic cultures. So they became, that one of the jewels. When you go to Bahrain, when you go to Kuwait, when you go to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, United Arab Emirates, that the 6 countries, you will see the best museum one of the best, I can't say, that the best, one of the best in the world.
With such deep reserves to draw from, whether from the stunning natural features, the traditional motifs, or the still vibrant historical buildings, young generations are being inspired to expand into new creative fields.
Culture has started to slowly move towards art. Traditionally, I would say that in the GCC, art and visual arts in particular are not necessarily the main form of expression. The original form of expression, the original form of creativity was poetry and literature. Recently, since the 1970s, you start to see the establishment of foundations and different institutions that are concerned with art.
The growth is clearly apparent in the sheer number of new exhibitions and art education centres opening throughout the region. Among them, for example, is the National Council for Culture and Arts and the Cultural Foundation in the United Arab Emirates and the Kuwaiti National Council for Culture and Arts. In Bahrain, we find Isa Cultural Centre. The Sultanate of Oman has built their own cultural clubs, and Qatar has created the Qatar Foundation for Education, Science and Community Development.
Over the last few years, you've seen a proliferation of art galleries, for example, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. There are galleries in Kuwait, in Bahrain. There is a sort of kind of resurgence of art and a huge amount of talent amongst, contemporary artists that is actually very, very exciting.
In addition to the pivotal role played by cultural institutions in the GCC, the emergence of cultural festivals and exhibitions has helped to connect the newly burgeoning field of art to their natural peers. Among these festivals, for example, are the Gulf Radio and Television Festival, the Dubai International Film Festival, and the Kuwait Theatre Festival. There are also international book fairs in Sharjah, Bahrain, Riyadh, Doha, and Kuwait.
One of the big things going on, well, there are two. I mean, there's the art fair in Dubai, which has been going on for about 7 years now, and that's actually really important because that's much more than just an art fair. They gather together galleries from all over the world. They also host this thing called the Global Art Forum, and they have people coming from all over the world giving talks and engaging in debates and so on. In Abu Dhabi, they've started this as well, and it happens at a different time of year in November, and that's actually now increasing in importance. So they also host galleries from all over the world, and they have debates and really a wonderful range of activities as well.
Creativity, then, is a catalyst for increased international cooperation overall, promoting collaboration across a variety of fields.
It helps hugely for people outside the region to look at this art and culture because it just helps give you a context. And the history is so important, and the art really, the work of contemporary artists, for example, a lot of them reference what's going on today in terms of the politics, but they also will reference their past, their cultural traditions, whether they use calligraphy or whether they reference other parts of their heritage. And so by looking at the art and this broader heritage, you can sort of like open a window onto these cultures, and sometimes it will surprise you. I think what we're seeing is a kind of realization that art is a great ambassador, and so it can offer a view of that country that perhaps we wouldn't otherwise be seeing, really. We tend to think of a lot of countries in the Middle East in very kind of stereotypical ways, but when we look at the art, we can see that there is a vibrancy, there's something very exciting going on there.
Gulf and Arab artists are finally receiving more international recognition for their work and have found success in different international markets.
I think that it's always been there. I mean, there have always been galleries. I mean, for example, in Kuwait, they had some of the first art galleries, the Sultan Gallery, for example, Darat al-Funun. And there have always been these very talented artists there. But it's only in recent years that the West has suddenly sort of recognized that there's something there for us to look at. And it's only in recent years that you started to find Middle Eastern artists appearing at auctions, for example. And a lot of that is being fed by what's going on, in the region.
Drama in GCC countries is considered one of the fastest growing fields of culture, strengthening the cultural, economic and historical relationships between GCC communities. Its increasingly important role has led countries to collaborate on projects region-wide, combining their efforts to produce some of the most popular programs in the Gulf. Compared to Arabic productions, dramas in the GCC have distinguished themselves by their fast evolution and their grounding in Gulf culture, emphasizing the continent's unique environment and original Arab Islamic customs. The GCC has in fact significantly supported a variety of cultural productions, resulting in an extensive number of programs with considerable reach. There is no better witness to this evolution than the Omani artist Butaina Al-Raisi, who is here to explain the central role of art in GCC countries.
معكم الفنانة بثينة الرئيسي من سلطنة عمان.
I am Butaina Raisi, an artist from the Sultanate of Oman. If we talk a little bit about the Gulf drama, we find that it has reached an advanced stage and became one of the most important types of Arabic drama, offering many series every year. We might see more than 35 television series, which I think is a big number today, because at its beginning we used to see 2 or 3 Gulf drama series for famous actors. The Gulf drama has witnessed very quick progress. And now there is a quantum leap in this kind of television art. We used to see that Kuwait was the trendsetter, but today we see other Gulf countries like Oman, Qatar, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, which became producers of important dramatic works.
قامت تنتج أعمال درامية وقامت تشارك وقامت تقدم أعمال مهمة ولها بصمة في الساحة الخليجية.
Now they have a footprint in the Gulf arena, and this is what we call very positive evolution. Because even if our culture is called the culture of the Gulf, yet each country has its own customs and traditions. Thus, now the Arab viewers can see that each Gulf country is presenting its own drama, and this is something very important. So we as artists benefit from learning about other cultures, which is a very beautiful thing. And God willing, this trend will continue, and we will see some more and more drama series from different countries in the coming years. Gulf drama is really a drama reflecting the life of the Gulf because it talks about our social life. The drama is usually about social issues, and these issues tackle the family environment mostly and actually reflect it well. But sometimes we see that some sitcoms or some scenarios are exaggerated and only tackle an environment that is full of major problems. So it gets negative reactions from the viewers who believe that our environment is not like this and it does not have such problems. That's why some sitcoms face a lot of criticism, while with other sitcoms we find that the viewers sympathize with the stories and support it, saying, yes, this truly reflects our environment. We actually say that some Gulf drama, not all of it, reflects the Gulf environment. There is a strong link between the drama and the environment.
Cinema is considered one of the most powerful tools to shape public opinion, popularizing or discrediting different ideas and issues on a wide scale. With such a significant influence, GCC countries are developing the capacity to tell their own stories, with governments providing extensive support to this vital field of art. To this end, countries have established a variety of well-known film festivals, recognized regionally and internationally for their contribution to the field.
With regard to the Gulf cinema, we note that the Gulf cinematic experience is very rare, actually, because we do not see any films on the ground. There are ideas. I personally discussed more than one film. But discussions remain discussions and nothing materialized. But we have noticed recently that there are Gulf film festivals, such as the Dubai Film Festival, Abu Dhabi Film Festival, and the Saudi Film Festival, have highlighted the works of young amateurs who take film making as a hobby.
وحابين إن ينمونها وحابين إن هواياتهم أو أفكارهم ترى النور. فهذه المهرجانات
These festivals supports the youth, but professional filmmaking in the Gulf is still limited, as entries to such festivals don't exceed the 10. Bearing in mind that the Gulf states' economic situation is excellent in this sense, but we still lack the expertise. People are hesitant to enter into this cinematic experience.
الفكر والتجربة وإن الواحد يجازف إن يخوض تجربة سينمائية هي يمكن فيها التردد. أنا مستغربة ليش إن للحين الحركة.
This is a call for all production companies which possess a rich experience in the drama field to enter the cinema field, and we will work with them hand in hand.
وإيدنا بإيدهم أكيد.
Some of the things that characterize the Gulf states are that there are always occasions related to cultural exchanges between each other. We notice that the Gulf states always have cultural and theatrical festivals, which gather all Gulf countries in one place, such as the Gulf Cinema Festival. One of these important festivals held annually in a different Gulf country. Last year, I think it was held in Kuwait, and all the Gulf states participated, which leads to some kind of cultural exchange, artistic cultural exchange, and theatrical cultural exchange. These things always bring us closer to each other, and these things are what distinguish the Gulf drama and the Gulf art movement. And we hope that these artistic and cultural gatherings will continue and increase, because eventually we are one Gulf arena and must always remain together and be innovative when we collaborate together.
Though the GCC countries have experienced great economic and demographic changes, their cultures are deeply rooted in historical traditions, especially in the fields of language and poetry. These developments have certainly provided greater financial support for the art world, but like any other national cultural efforts, art in the Gulf still struggles to find acceptance and support. Thankfully, the GCC government's nuanced vision of their people's well-being has led to significant public backing, helping to develop their burgeoning national art sectors.
In terms of the problems and difficulties that we face in the Gulf drama in general, we have a few writers in the Gulf who write about the Gulf's social setup. We also have a few contexts in the Gulf drama so far, and we note that there is a repetition of the stories, repetition of themes, thus leading to public criticism of what we offer. I am one of the artists who receives 6 to 7 works every year, I read them and I notice the repetition of the idea. This reflects the shortage that we have in innovative drama scripts. And we hope to get support from stakeholders in looking for new writers with new thinking to come up with new texts and new ideas. This could develop the dramatic movement. These are some of the problems that we face in the Gulf drama, and we hope that there is immediacy or a competent authority to support the development of the Gulf drama, whether it be location scouting or even building sets that serves drama work.
العمل الدرامي
Given the Gulf countries' shared cultural heritage, it should be no surprise that they have come together to foster regional cultural collaborations. These projects not only pool funding and resources, but also provide a shared creation for citizens to unite around.
I think there are coordinations between the different member states in terms of cultural agendas or maybe strategies. There are clearly trends that go throughout the different member states in terms, again, of embracing modernity at the same time, keeping the sense of heritage.
The Gulf Cooperation Council Joint Production Institution was one of the first leading institutions to combine preservation and dissemination efforts in the GCC. It was in fact established a few years before Council itself by an agreement between the GCC Ministries of Information. The institution thus has independent legal status based in Kuwait and has been promoting historical and cultural linkages ever since.
The strategic plan of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf focuses on the development of intellectual infrastructures as it views culture as the basis for the cohesion of the nation. It also focuses on promoting cultural unity among the GCC countries and the particular role of women and civil society institutions.
They are certainly calling on expertise from outside, but actually they've got a huge amount of expertise there. Actually, in many cases, they don't need anybody from the outside. You know, they've got it all there. You know, there's a lot of infrastructure. You know, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, for example, in Oman, I saw some very, very interesting things going on there in terms of associations and support of artists in Bahrain as well. So, you know, right across the region, there's definitely a lot of new things going on in terms of art.
Gulf countries will only continue gaining momentum in their cultural pursuits as younger generations have more and more exposure to various types of art. They are becoming increasingly eager to contribute to these fields and dedicate their lives to creative expression.
There is a real appetite in all these different countries with different kinds of initiatives going on, and one of the things that's very interesting is that there is this realization that artists need to be trained as well, that there aren't that many art schools, in fact very, very few across the region, and so there are tremendous efforts being made, to send artists on residency programs and, to come to London or to go to Paris or whatever, and with, artist exchanges and that sort of thing. So there is a very much a growing realization within a lot of these countries that this is actually very, very important.
The Gulf Cooperation Council countries have realized the importance of culture, which has pushed mankind to intellectually progress. Culture, though, remains a social legacy and represents the accumulation of all the achievements of humanity. For it to truly develop, one must honour the past achievements while taking inspiration from contemporary society.